Happy Friday. So why does your granulator not granulate as much as you would want it to granulate? So today we're gonna go into a little bit more detail on why your granulator might not be granulating or chopping as much wire as you want it to granulate. Number one, the very first number one, and I get this all the time, and it's happened to me. So this happens a lot. The granulator is actually going in reverse. So you put material in it, it's chopping. You're saying, hey, this material's chopping, I'm getting copper chops, but it's going into reverse. So here is what the best way to be able to tell how that granulator, or if this is what's happening. The first way is to look at the wire. So say this is a piece of copper wire, right? Nice and flat. When you chop this, when you cut it, you should see that wire being cut. It should be like a pretty clean cut. If you are seeing a deformation in the wire, right, in your chop, right, so you're like a little piece of, I'm exaggerating this, say this is one big piece of chop, and you're getting deformations in it, like smushing of the copper, that's a good indication of two things. Either your rotor is going in reverse, or your blade is not gapped properly. So you'll get kind of the same effect both ways. You're gonna get extremely low throughput if your rotor is spinning backwards, because what's happening is your blade is coming like this instead of coming, and it's coming against the bed blade, and it's just smushing it in against it instead of cutting. That's the number one reason that your granulator is really stinking at production. It's because of this. A lot of time and effort goes into making these videos, and the real goal is to get you guys as much information as possible. So if for some reason there's some information or some questions that are unanswered still, put them in the comments below. I'll try my best to answer every question. And if you want a quote on any of the equipment, the link is in the description below. Thank you. So number two, your blades are not gapped properly. So if your blade is, if you have too big of a blade or gap, right? So this is your bed blade, like this, and then your fly blade is coming back on this side here on the front side, and like this. If there's too big of a gap here, if that gap is too big, you will not get good, it won't chop properly. So this is a very big reason why I think I need a new one of these, why your machine is not properly outputting. Because what happens is that same piece here that goes through and does not get chopped doesn't fall through the screen. It keeps going back around and around until it finally gets small enough to go through. You create a bunch of things here, a lot of friction, a lot of unnecessary heat. When your machine gets hot, that plastic gets hot, now you risk a meltdown in your granulator. So there's really good reasons for why you want to have these blades be gapped properly. Number three, believe it or not, this happens a lot, is this here. You will have your bed blade backwards. So this here, this fly blade is really hard to install this backwards. I've never seen it installed backwards. I've seen them go spinning backwards, but never installed backwards. But the bed blade, and the reason is this, on the front side of the machine, your bed blade is going to be opposite. Because when this blade comes down and hits this point, and comes back around, it's hitting this point. So this blade here is wrong, this one here is wrong, and this one here is right. So because of this, if you have an operator that's not paying attention when he's installing the blades, this can happen very easily. It's happened to us. You wanna have this blade, this point to point, and then when it comes back around, point to point on that side. Now there's some brands of granulators where it doesn't matter, they're square blades, so it doesn't matter if it's one way or the other. Some of them have it to where you can't physically put the blades, the bolts through it, so it gives you the direction. But this would happen more often than you think. So this is a big reason. One more, it is your screen size. So if you have your rotor, and remember I'm horrible at this, so this kind of looks like a smiley face with a nose, maybe I should put some eyes. But this is your screen here, and you have your blades, right? That we did that earlier, the blade here like this, and then the other blade, I have to be careful here, opposite, and then you have your blade spinning. If this screen here is not the right size, your material, for example, if you're doing Romex, the Romex will come in here and will just, they're solid chunks. It'll just stay in here for a long time if you have the same screen that you would use for THHN, which is a smaller screen. So you want that screen to be just the right size. Like when we do Romex and THHN mixed together, we go with one that's kind of in between the Romex screen and the THHN screen. So for THHN, if I'm going in standard, I'd use an 1/8 of an inch is kind of regular for THHN. If you're not using a turbo, just if you're just granulating, 1/8 of an inch. If you're doing THHN with Romex, you're going to use a 3/16. So it's not quite a quarter, but it's not a quarter. If you're doing just Romex, then a quarter or something around that side would be fine. But probably the most standard screen for doing the two together, if you're doing number 1 wire, would be a 3/16. Now, if you are using a turbo after your granulator, you can open up that screen much bigger. You can experiment with it and say, okay, I'm going to go with a 3/8 screen in that granulator, and then you'll see that the material goes through that granulator much faster. Where you have to be careful is that you don't put a screen that's so big that now you're taxing your turbo mill or your delamination mill. After it goes through the granulator, now if you see the amps spike up on your turbo mill, now they're not working equally. So the trick there is to get that granulator screen to be sized just right so that these two machines, the granulator and the turbo, are kind of coasting at the same, close to peak amps, but not overwhelming the other or not having, really high amps. And the last one, your blades aren't sharp. So you might have, your gap might be pretty tight, but if your blades aren't sharp and you get that rolled over, that, the tip being not sharp, you're gonna get less production through your granulator. Now, if you were to ask me, Josh, does it matter more sharpness or gap? I will tell you 100% of the time, the gap matters more than how sharp your blades are. So if your blades are not sharp, at least take the time to gap them and make them as tight together as possible. Because even if it is pinching, if you make that gap tight, it's gonna pinch it into a cut. And then it will cut the material, even though it's not really cutting it, it's pinching it, but you'll still get that cutting action. Whereas if you have sharp blades and those sharp blades are further apart, you're just gonna be cutting at nothing. You need that bed blade, you need that gap, that tight gap. So that's the most important part. So hopefully this helps and you can figure out how to get more production out of your granulator. If you like this video, if you have any comments, put them in the comments. Like, comment, subscribe. We'll catch you in the next one. Happy Friday. I'm gonna explain just real briefly, many of you already know how this works, but how a granulator works, the principle. So this here is the screen cradle, which goes up and down hydraulic.